their reasons are not genuine, always referring to the so-called Iranian threat in order to justify the system. Once again, they try to fool us. Now the system is functioning and being loaded with missiles. But as a journalist, I would think you would know that these missiles are put into capsules, which are used in the Tomahawk long-range missile system. But we know that technology is advanced, and we even know in which year the U.S. will acquire the next, more advanced missile, which will be able to penetrate distances of up to 1,000 kilometers and even further. And from that moment on, they will start to directly threaten Russian nuclear potential. We even know year by year what's going to happen, and they know we know. It's only you that they tell these fables, and you buy it and spread it to the citizens of your countries. And your people do not feel a sense of the impending danger. This is what worries me. How do you not understand that the world is being pulled in an irreversible direction? That is the problem. But they pretend like nothing's going on. I don't even know how to get through to you people anymore. One complex blocks, the other launches a high-precision weapon, yet another blocks a potential nuclear strike. The third delivers its own nuclear strike in response. This is all designed to be part of one system in combination in this modern, non-nuclear, high-precision missile defense systems. But okay, let's forget these missile defense systems, which will continue to develop and threaten us ever more. But those capsules into which the anti-missiles are inserted, as I mentioned, they are ship-based. And these warships can carry the Tomahawks. And one could position the Tomahawks in a matter of a few hours. And then it is no longer an anti-missile system now, is it? How do we know what kind of weapons are in there? All you have to do is change the program. That's it. And this is done unnoticeably. And even the Romanians wouldn't know what's going on. What, you actually think they're allowed to be informed? No one will know. Not the Romanians, not the Polish either. I am well versed in such techniques. In my view, we are in grave danger. We had discussed this with our American partners, where they were saying that they would have liked to develop ballistic missiles without a nuclear warhead. And we told them, look, do you at least understand what that means or not? That means you're going to have missiles launching from submarines or ground territories. A ballistic missile launch. How do we know whether or not it has a nuclear warhead? Can you imagine what kind of a threat you will be creating? But as far as I know now, this program is not active. They have paused it for now. But the other one, they continue to implement. How all this will end, I do not know. But I know for sure that we will be forced to respond and defend ourselves. But I can see it already that they will be accusing us, yet again, of aggressive behavior, even though it is only a response on our part. Is it not obvious that we must guarantee the safety of our people? But not only our people, but also we are very concerned with providing the necessary strategic balance of power in the world, which is what I started with and will reiterate once again. It was precisely this balance of power that guaranteed planetary peace and safeguarded us from major global conflicts over the past 70 years. And it is a blessing, even though it is rooted in this mutual threat. But nevertheless, the mutual threat is what provided us with global peace for dozens of years. How could one dare to destroy it? I do not know. I think this is very dangerous. I not only think, I know it is. Another threat that President Obama mentioned was ISIS. Well, who on earth armed them? Who helped to arm the Syrians that were fighting against Assad? Who created the necessary political climate that facilitated this situation? Who pushed for the delivery of arms to the area? Do you really not understand as to who is fighting in Syria?
So the export of revolutions, this time of so-called democratic ones, continues. It would suffice to look at the situation in the Middle East and North Africa, as has been mentioned by my previous speaker. Certainly, political and social problems in this region have been piling up for a long time, and people there wished for changes naturally. But how did it actually turn out? Rather than bringing about reforms, an aggressive foreign interference has resulted in a brazen destruction of national institutions and their lifestyle itself. Instead of the triumph of democracy and progress, we got violence, poverty, and social disaster. And nobody cares a bit about human rights, including the right to life. I cannot help asking those who have caused this situation, do you realize now what you've done?
In 2015, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg declared that the West is in greater danger from Russia than it ever faced during the Cold War. Employing a paranoid rhetoric that portrays Russia as being bullied by the Western powers, the unstable figure of Vladimir Putin rules with a tight grip and one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals at his disposal. But how dangerous is Russia? Facing the greatest immediate threat is the Ukraine, with whom Russia has been in conflict for decades. Violence has escalated in the country since 2013, with Putin doubling the amount of Russian troops near the Russian-Ukraine border and passing into Crimea, as well as organizing the funding and arming of pro-Russian Ukrainian rebels. Having doubled its defense budget since 2007, Russia is currently spending $300 billion on modernized weapons and military vehicles, as well as recruiting 60,000 ground troops each year. In total, this accounts for 1/3 of the country's annual spending. Thousands of these ground troops are entering the Ukraine in unmarked uniforms and vehicles. Working alongside Ukrainian rebels, they are known as Little Green Men. They have reportedly seized public buildings by force, occupied roads, and patrol airports while carrying assault rifles. While it is generally thought to be unlikely that Russia will attempt a full takeover of the Ukraine, it is possible that it may seize an area of land to forge a mini-state, and in doing so, it would have the leverage to take wider control over its neighbors. But it's not just the Ukraine in danger. Putin has expressed a desire to reunify former Soviet territories in order to restore the prestige of the Soviet Union. There are reports that nuclear missiles have been planted close to the Polish border. NATO suggests countries including Latvia and Estonia could also be at risk from Russian aggression. It is thought Putin could lead a covert campaign within former Soviet bloc countries, as he has done in the past. Potential threats include cyber attacks and the targeting of Russian citizens living in Baltic countries. And it's not just with ground troops that Russia has been demonstrating its military power. In 2014, NATO planes intercepted 400 Russian planes either over or close to international borders. Latvia reported 150 incidents of Russian planes in its airspace. Flying with radars turned off, Russian craft are unseen by other pilots. There have been 2 near collisions between Russian military aircraft and Swedish airliners. While America and Britain have offered help to the Ukraine and made a clear anti-Russian stance, Putin and his government have forged links with China. The Russian president has entered into trade agreements in a bid to please Chinese authorities and guarantee their military alliance. Sharing a desire to stall Western political influence, in May 2015, the 2 countries' naval forces joined up to practice exercise drills in the Mediterranean Ocean. Could this strengthening alliance pose a grave threat to the West? At the heart of this increasingly violent behavior are the troubles affecting the Russian economy. Reliant largely on oil, Russia has been struggling to maintain a stable economy for decades. In 2012, Russia's economy significantly declined, triggering Putin to launch a political campaign intended to intensify Russian nationalism. He limited free speech and strangled civil rights, targeting journalists and minority groups, notably the LGBTQ community. Putin's need to present Russia as a powerful country regardless of the economic crisis ultimately led to the invasion of the Ukraine. Hoping to distract Russians from their financial struggle, the conflict was painted as a necessary war against Western powers. Seemingly, Putin knew how to impress the people of his own country, as his official approval rating during the violence stood at 80%. If it worked for him once, Is it possible that he will lead his country into further conflict in a desperate bid to avoid confronting the failure of the Russian economy? As history often proves, war is good for business. Secretary-General Stoltenberg has made it clear that many of the 7,500 nuclear weapons Russia holds would take just minutes to deploy. This means that if we allow Putin's paranoia to continue unabated, the West could be just moments from destruction.
In 2013, China launched a stream of cyber attacks on the United States of America. A high-level hacking group called Iron Tiger had stolen trillions of bytes of data from the US government and secretly monitored key US corporations. As a burgeoning superpower at odds with America's capitalist supremacy, China's hacking enterprise is part of its strategy to challenge the United States' dominant global position, and technological infiltration is just the start. With 2,333,000 active personnel, China has the biggest army in the world. Despite suffering a financial crash in August 2015, China also remains the world's second largest economy and continues to grow at an astonishing rate of 7% every year. As its military, politics and trade relations grow ever stronger, China's dream to displace American power could very soon become a reality. China and Russia are two Eastern powerhouses with many political similarities, and recent events suggest that there is a strong military alliance forming between them. Trade between the two nations has increased sixfold over the past decade, and globalization professor Alexander Korolev points out that President Putin and Xi Jinping have a mutual interest in promoting an alternative to Western diplomacy. In other words, both countries wish to limit American power. This Russo-Chinese axis is particularly unnerving because there is one area of trade in which Russia has been very generous. Russian arms sales to China are estimated at $1 billion per year. China's arsenal already boasts land attack cruise missiles, missile destroyers, sophisticated grenade launchers with a range of 800 meters, 100,000 sea mines, satellite destroyers designed to black out America's media, and an estimated 3,000 nuclear weapons. And in 2014, Russia began supplying China with its S-400 missile, a deadly weapon with a tracking range of 600 kilometers and the ability to hit targets 400 kilometers away at an amazing speed of 17,000 kilometers an hour. Not only does this sale significantly boost China's military capability, but it continues to strengthen China's bond with America's rival. The US Treasury Department has shown that China is in a formidable position to keep developing its reefs and armed forces, as it is the owner of $1.3 trillion worth of American debt. This in turn has lowered the value of the Chinese yuan, which makes the country's exports more competitive and keeps China's economy booming. As long as China's economy and its friendship with Russia remains intact, the world is at risk. But on the tumultuous path of international relations, the longevity of the Russo-Chinese axis is questionable. Without the force of Russia behind it, China loses the vital trade and the military support to actualize global conflict.
Нашей России. Слава народу-победителю! С праздником! С Днем Великой Победы! Ура!
Сил, представляющие сухопутные войска, военно-морские и военно-воздушные силы Народно-освободительной армии Китайской Народной Республики. На Красной площади самые юные участники парада. Проходит рота Московского Суворовского военного училища. Командует парадным расчетом начальник училища генерал-майор Александр Касьянов. площади воспитанники образованного в 1943 году Тверского Суворовского военного училища.